Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I am proud to bring you the UFO entity enigma. And we have here fellow explorers into the cosmic unknown. We'll start with Nick Curto. He is the president of Disclosure Network New York and one of the founders. And he's also one of the founders of the Urantia book, New York. So Nick is immersed in all of these phenomena. Greetings, Nick.
Great to have you all here with Hercules, because this is always like one of the top shows I look forward to. There's always so much to say and always new materials coming in. So looking forward.
Thank you for your kind words. And then we have the legendary Tim Swartz, who worked with Tim Beckley for many years and brought us a lot of paranormal and occult information very steadily, and who now has taken up the torch, and he's done it on his own, and he's continued the tradition. He's continued pouring this information into the mass consciousness. So we're very honored to have him as well. Greetings, Tim.
Hi, Hercules. Thank you for having me with you tonight, and greetings to everyone else who's on the panel.
Thank you. And we have Setna of Khemet, who is also known as Michael K. Waterman, and he is very many things. He's an elder in the pagan community. He is a high priest, and he's an investigator of high rank. So welcome, Setna.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. I can't wait to get going. I'm excited.
Okay, we'll get going then. Thank you. 2023 is almost over. This is the last month of the year. And I was reflecting back on things that I've learned this year about the UFO entity enigma. And because my life is dedicated to mythology, especially Greco-Roman mythology or Olympian mythology, as it's sometimes called, I saw elements of these stories being rooted in the past, especially around the Mediterranean region. So I started looking at investigating this phenomenon as a mythical activity. And you don't have to see it that way, but that's how I see it currently. So that's the way I'm approaching the phenomenon. And it's yielded a lot of information. Like, for instance, I know in Greek folklore, because when I was growing up in Greece, in the islands, they still had gypsies who dressed like gypsies in the movies, and they had those covered wagons, and they used to eat porcupine, and people used to say,
Whoa.
Yeah, porcupine hedgehogs, things like that. And people used to tell stories about the curse of the gypsies and things like that. When I went older back to Greece, last time I was there, the gypsies had jeans and trucks and things like that. But I managed to experience a lot of the leftover medievalism in rural Europe. So I'm glad that I got that perspective. And I began to catch these stories, and now I've been focusing on them for years. So I really want to approach the whole field as a manner of conveying information that's actually phenomenally old and very shamanic. So that's what my personal focus will be. And I have a wonderful panel with areas of expertise that they have cultivated over the years. So I'll be very receptive to listening to them and their perspective. So we will weave into our explorations many different voices and focus on opening up our minds and coming to our own conclusions. So I plan on taking us into more experiential waters. So that's what I learned, and that's what I'd like to do. And now we move to, you look like a space brother, Nick. To Curto.
This is a brand new, the glasses and the silver. I have pants to match this. And I've been wearing the silver pants, and I've been getting quite a reaction on New York streets as well as New England, where I just came from New England, and they don't see silver pants that much up in that area, and I got some great reactions.
We were promised silver pants by everything that was there when we were growing up. Silver clothes, moving sidewalks, jetpacks, people zooming around on jetpacks, floating cars, that defy gravity.
Yep.
We got the telephones that you could talk on and look at each other with, that we have now. And we didn't anticipate the whole computer age way back there in the day, but we got, I'm glad to see you in the silver clothes.
Well, as far as what you just said, we have come a ways. We do have some of the things that we, as children, were reading and looking at in early movies, and we were hoping that that would be our future. And some of that has come true. Some of it hasn't. One of the things that I would love to see soon would be flying cars. And I know
Mhm.
that I've seen on the internet, they've been perfected. They're getting very close now. To practical flying cars, and there's a lot more to go. Like, what would the paths be in the up above? Would there be certain paths that like planes that people would have to go on to be safe? There's all kinds of rules that would have to be followed worldwide if that were to happen. But I think it's something that I will see. I think we all will see soon, on some level, and that's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I'm looking forward to the heated moving sidewalks as I get older.
Yeah, well, they have moving
Mm,
sidewalks in some of the airports, as you know.
Mhm.
So that's a kind of a taste of it.
And what did you learn in 2023?
Oh wow. Oh boy, that's loaded. I am shocked at where we are as a world right now. I am deeply shocked. In my wildest nightmares, I'm being very honest here. I never thought it would come to what's going on right now worldwide. Um, it's shocking to me. It's very disturbing. I think that we've never been close to threats of nuclear weapons than now in my whole life. I've never felt that we were closer as a world to something like that, which would be, of course, a huge step in the wrong direction. But we can't deny that world leaders have threatened that already. So that's something that is very troubling. I think that everybody feels the same way. Like we gotta go way back and not get agreements that really will stick, because that really is a threat to us all and our children.
Yes, we seem to be living in apocalyptic times.
And the other part of that, Hercules, is that we also are living in such an exciting time of inventions, of communications, of people waking up and really smelling the coffee, really looking at the world situation and seeing who the good guys and the bad guys are, and not just trusting major mainstream media, and looking for other alternatives, especially on the internet. And it's so exciting to see future investigative reporters that are out there right now. There's several amazing programs now on the internet daily, and they know what's going on. They really report the truth. And one good example would be Tucker Carlson, who now has his own network. That is a huge step for investigative reporters. He's one of those people that has come to be trusted, as say Walter Cronkite was totally trusted in the day. And there's a lot of reporters now on the mainstream media, unfortunately, and quite shockingly, that they're all reading the same script. And really, that is incredibly disturbing. So that's part of the picture. So we've got a roller coaster of amazing, exciting, wonderful things coming up, and yet there are threats in the background. So it's both.
It's very polarizing. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I'm an elected official, a minor one, but I am an elected official, and it's very disturbing because we're so polarized. But each side is blaming the other side for the same types of things, and the mythology contrasts are very startling. So one person's brave investigative reporters, another's propagandist, and we have all these extreme opinions, and we seem less tolerant or patient with listening to other perspectives and so forth. So it is a very polarized situation. I hope that we pass this phase in the very near future and get back to trying to improve life for everybody.
I got to do one more thing here and say
Sure.
that I deeply feel that we're going to go through some very bad times. I think there's no avoiding that. But I think we're going to come out of this amazingly stronger, amazingly more more spiritual, more loving, not only of our planet's population, but other planets too. I foresee that. I've dreamt about that too. I had one dream where I was out on a city street and there were green trees and boulevards, but there was no vehicles, no fast moving vehicles that you had to dodge. And I asked somebody in my dream, what happened to the trucks and the bicycles and the motorcycles and everything that people were dodging? And they said, oh, we finally decided it had to go underground. So all the stores are loading all the people that are transported. It's all now underground. So nobody on the surface has to dodge threatening buses and everything else. And that seemed like a very good idea. And I thought, well, that's a step in the right direction. And then again, this is my dream.
So we're glad you're here, and hopefully your dream of a better world for all can be actualized and come true.
Amen. Thank you.
And thank you. Tim, what did you learn in 2023, and what would you like to see in 2024?
Well, Hercules, I first of all, I just want to make a comment about Nick's dream about everybody moving, say, like, vehicles and streets and maybe even the cities themselves going underground, which, that's very interesting because a lot of the UFO entity mythology that we have discussed this year heavily goes down that path of a past civilizations, breakaway groups, aliens, you bring in everybody involved living underground. All right. The whole UFO phenomena has been intertwined with this inner Earth mythology. And that at one time on this planet, there were other civilizations, technologically based civilizations that either evolved here or came here from other planets, but eventually moved underground. And we still see those kinds of stories cropping up now and then when it comes to UFOs and the UFO entities. We still have the stories of the extraterrestrial groups who have built, possibly in cooperation with the United States and other world power governments, underground bases where they do their where they come and go, or and depending on who's telling the story, either conduct beneficial or nefarious activities for or against mankind. So it's just always interesting to me to hear people talk about how, rather than say like a George Jetson type of future where we have these like huge spiraling buildings going up to the heavens, or like with George Jetson, they actually were floating in the sky, instead going the opposite and moving underground to leave the surface world for whatever, but more beneficial types of things. So it's just I don't know, is that part of that human condition, that part of us that knows that possibly at one point in our past we may have came from one of those underground civilizations. You have the what was it, the Hopi and the Ant people that saved the Hopi from some kind of apocalyptic event, and then allowed them to come back to the surface once everything was cleaned up and ready to go. But about your question, Hercules, normally for this kind of program, I write up a lot of notes and papers and everything, and try to be kind of well versed before I get into it. But I thought this, for today's show, it just needed to be more of a, I suppose, a stream of consciousness type of. But we talked about quite a bit this year the whole UFO entities, and we discussed mythologies, ancient mythologies, modern mythologies, and the occult groups and activities that involve these beings, these entities, whatever you'd want to call them, that came in all kinds of different guises, from like the ancient gods of Greece to the fairies and elves of other countries to the UFO people that we have today. And with these discussions, it just, and while I never form really a strong opinion one way or the other, because we really don't know, and I don't want to get into that brain lock of convincing myself that this is the explanation and the only explanation. It just, the whole subject is just, to me, really amazing, and I look for these commonalities that have come down to us and have been with us right from the very beginning, with these stories, with these legends. And, we wrote quite a bit about this in our book, Mimics the Others Among Us, and looking into the fact that so many of these of beings who look human, but obviously aren't, but they seem to fill that niche in our collective environment, I suppose, and our collective psychic environment, possibly, may be a better term for it. That they come to us when we need them, and they appear to us as we expect them to appear to us. So it'll be interesting. And I know, you asked, where I thought this was going to go, in 2024. And you have to realize that this is such a long game, that we're talking about things that people were talking about 1,000 years ago, and probably even further back. I mean, the descriptions and the ideas on what we're dealing with were different, but that's to be expected. So 2024, 3024, 4044, are we going to be talking about the same things, but using different words, different descriptions? Will these things continue to be with us, with us having really no more better understanding than we do now? I think that we need to have a better understanding, though, of, and for want of better words, Hercules, the realms of psychic and magic and all that, because that seems to play an important part in all of this. And while we no longer go, or most people no longer go and draw symbols on the floors and light candles to produce these things, we develop new rituals to invoke these things. And I listened to somebody describe how a method that they had come up with to call down the UFOs, all right, to bring them in and to establish mental communications with them. And really, is that any different than what people were doing, 1,000 years ago, when they would light the bonfires and make a sacrifice to call the gods to them to grant their desires, or to alleviate their fears on those cold winter nights when it looked like that spring and summer would never come again. So, I'm just looking at the long picture and trying to have a better understanding on how our beliefs and our mythologies grow and evolve from the times when we first crawled out of the caves to the times when we'll leave this planet and go on to live on new worlds, throughout the galaxy. And I just wonder, will we bring these things with us? Not realizing how attached they are to us and us to them, or are they strictly a product of this planet? And even though we may go to other worlds, we might find completely different types of, and again, for want of better words, Hercules, supernatural beings that will live on those planets and then interact with us in their terms until we get a better grasp of them. That's an interesting concept, and I would love to be able to live to see that time, but I'm not going to. But I just hope that that other people like me will have that sense of curiosity and will continue discussions like this, in hopes of better understanding ourselves, our worlds, and our universe. And I'll leave it at that.
And that is a wonderful foundation on which to continue this conversation past today's episode. Currently, I'm researching the reptilian mythology and fiction and everything, and the myth that seems to be emerging there, that in terms of giving it some consistency, because all mythology contradicts itself, but the main story that seems to be becoming part of the bigger story is that on this planet, as well as other places in our universe, reptilian beings evolved. So on our planet, dinosaurs evolved and became sentient and became civilized and evolved much like we did. And then when their planet was being destroyed and circumstances were changing and they were inimical to their life, some were said to have gone underground and some were said to have gone into space. And the ones that went underground gave birth to some mythology, like with the Deros and the Teros and the Shaver mystery, where you had some of the Teros who were friendly toward humanity, and then you had the Deros, which were the detrimental ones who, were inimical to humanity. But now the dinosaurs in space are said to have returned, and they're interacting with the dinosaurs below our Earth, and that will lead to changes on our planet. So again, whether this is actually true in any non-astral sense or not, I don't know. But the fact is that I could see during the course of my lifetime a mythology emerging and taking shape, and it rests on older mythologies and older stories, some of them prehistoric, but it's also acquiring elements of its own based on like the mythology of UFOs and so forth. So it's a really fascinating thing to see. And on the nature of these beings, I've interacted with such beings for my entire life, and I don't know. I can't really say with any certainty what they are. I've never been told to be careful of beings that can mislead me, because humans that are incarnate can mislead me too. So it's kind of like whether somebody's visible or invisible. It doesn't really mean much. Also, I've said this a few times to occultists or to people who are religious, is that if a higher being is speaking to me, I count their words as their opinion. It might be a higher opinion than mine. It might be a bigger opinion than mine, but that's just their opinion. I'm here and I have to act on it. So I'm not going to accept information just because some exalted being who's glowing white or yellow or gold or whatever said it to me. I don't know the answer, and I have these types of experiences. I've never been asked to believe anything, and that I've been encouraged to read and to explore, but I've never been told that this is the truth and there are no other truths. And I've always just been encouraged to read, to talk to people, and so forth. So the beings that I interact with are atypical, I guess, in terms of the mythological things that happen when one encounters such beings. Either that or I'm just very stubborn. So I don't know. But that is an excellent foundation that you established, and I'm grateful to you for establishing it.
Thanks, Hercules.
And now we go to Setna Kamwast of Khemet, who has a very unique perspective based on antiquity and also based in the stars around us. So Setna, I'm looking forward to hearing your words.
Well, first of all, I grew up in a pagan community. I grew up, I don't like to use the word witch, but as a witch. And also after a long time of initiations and rituals, I was made a high priest of an ancient Egyptian order called Pernateru. I am now the chief high priest and protector of the lodge, the temple. So I know those things. And we are about to enter the winter solstice. And as you know, in the temple at Abu Simbel, the temple of Ramses II, when the sun hits a certain point, it will hit the back of the temple, and rituals will be, and ceremonial things, hieroglyphs will be revealed, which are not the rest of the year. From my ancestors, also, that's a time with the Druids where they'll be at Stonehenge. And there's also the hitching post of the sun from, I think it's the Inca and the Aztecs, have different temples that are going to show you when the light hits those things, certain things are revealed. That technology from Mesoamerica, people aren't really sure where that came from. And the Egyptians called their quote unquote gods and goddesses, who I call Neteru, which means watchers, by the way, not gods and goddesses. That was a Western thing, a European thing, to call them gods and goddesses. The Egyptians never did that. And they said that they are arbiters taking care of, or stewards taking care of this particular planet. And that's all they were doing. They didn't say they were universal or the divine being. There is a being called Temu, which very few people outside of Egyptian magic know anything about. And that's called the divine of the divine. It is not male nor female. It's what in Star Wars they call the Force. And I relate to it that way, that it's something beyond mortal comprehension. And that we have that energy, that spark of life, if you will, within us, but that we're not able to completely bring that down to the earth. Many pagan cultures think they can conjure those things, as you said, Tim, through ritual and ceremony and drawing magical circles on the ground. And I think what happens is psychologically, they get themselves into such a state, and with shamanic peoples who use different psychedelic drugs, that they may not bring the energy down. I won't get myself in trouble, but bring down that energy as much as they as they think they're doing it. The consciousness comes forward within them because they say so, because they will it to be so. Not that it may actually be so. When you take mushrooms or peyote or these things, they react with the synapses in the brain. And there are many cultures that, say that that bring you into another level of consciousness. I would like to see, a brain scan when that's happening to see what's going on. What do you think, Tim, when it comes to something like that?
Sorry, I had my microphone turned off here.
Well, I was asking, a lot of these old cultures, Mexican, Indian, Tibetan, et cetera, Native American, use various and assorted psychotropic drugs
Mhm.
to induce certain states, and they do ritual, and like Mandela, or in my culture, the pagan cultures, they draw symbols on the magical circle on the ground, but they're taking these mind-altering drugs, and they say it puts them into a different state. My thought, as a person who's magical but also scientific, does that altered state, is there something in the brainwave charts? Has anyone ever done that to see what happens when a shaman reaches these places, where, in my case, we reach a thing called the Vici,
Mhm.
where they're in an ecstatic state. I'd like to see what the brainwaves look like and what it tells us, about what's happening. What do you think of that? That's what I was asking.
Well, I know that they have done some brainwave studies on people who were, like drunk or high on various kinds of intoxicants. But, I don't know if anybody has actually done anything. And this is mainly because of the illegalities of doing research using, say, like psychedelics. But I don't know if anybody has really done any comprehensive studies using brainwave analysis, MRIs. I mean, there's so much more that they could do now. And fortunately, that stigma towards using various kinds of psychedelics to research consciousness and how these drugs could actually, under the right conditions, be beneficial to help heal certain kinds of mental problems. That's we're seeing a resurgence of interest, and that stigma is kind of going away, and then hopefully the government will relax their laws a little bit when it comes to serious proper research. There was one thing I wanted to say to you, though, is that I don't think that there has been a civilization, or very few at least, civilization on this planet that doesn't have some kind of ritualistic use of intoxicants in
That's true.
in the form of hallucinogens. Everybody seems to have something. So that's a very universal trait, and people must be on to something about that. Of course, you had the research that was being done with DMT, where. And now, of course, his name has slipped my mind completely. Terrence Young, who did studies and actually was left with the impression that, say, like certain kinds of psychedelic mushrooms may actually be a fourth dimensional intelligence that reaches out to us here in the three-dimensional world in the form of these hallucinogens, and that's how we establish contact with them.
I know in Egypt they use the blue lotus, and they're doing studies on that right now. And I wanted to say something. Like Hercules, I'm also known as a very long adept transmedium. My guide's name is Sorensiti, and in the 1970s and early 80s, studies were done with me. And the interesting thing is that I did do brainwave charts, as it were. And when I work with Sorensiti, when it's me, they have the chart one way. When it's him, my brain chart was completely different, as though, yes, it's somebody else's brain chart. So that's an interesting thing. Have you done that too, Hercules? Have you worked with things that way?
I don't really do psychedelics.
No. As an astral projection or transmedium.
Yeah, I've had brain studies done on me. Some of them.
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
And in all the brain studies, they told me that I couldn't do what I was claiming, but it turned out that I could. So I could enter certain relaxed states very quickly. I had some control of my brainwave patterns, so I could switch from like beta, which is waking consciousness, to alpha and theta and delta, and kind of move through them. I had some control over that. But never with an entity inside of me. When I
Well,
gave up being deep trance medium, I kind of didn't allow entities inside of me anymore. So I don't have any tests, but the fact that we have more control over our brains and thereby our experience than we think we do, that was pretty well established by the brainwave patterns. I
there
took
was a doc. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I forgive me.
I took when I worked in the mental health field, I took some tests in New York with some experimental things that they were, you know, developing with MRIs and stuff like that. And the person interpreting my tests when we told me they hated me because they said your brain could basically do anything you want it to do. So I haven't found that to be true totally, but I am pretty good at bringing things about that were inside my brain. So I guess I'll accept
Well,
that definition.
in the late 1970s, I worked with a guy called Dr. Ted Bennett and Albert Morris, who I don't know what happened to him. But we went down to the Edgar Cayce Center and they had all kinds of machines that they hooked me up to. And also something here in New York, out in Long Island, I don't remember. I was in college in 1977, I think it was, or 78. They hooked me up. And we did this thing also with remote viewing. An astrologer, his name is Joe Liccardo, who I haven't seen in, I don't know, 30 years, had lost his cat. And he said to me, can you help me? Knowing that I was involved with magic and those things. And I used remote viewing. And I told him a number, which was I think 273, and the street number, I mean, a house. And I told him where the cat was. I could see the cat laying under a Volkswagen Bug, kind of a Celadon green up with no tires. It was on up on, what do you call them? Cinder blocks. And I saw the cat laying under it. And it was about 4 blocks or 5 blocks from his house. And I told him the name of the street and the number of the house. And sure enough, his cat's name was Spooky. That's where he was laying. And Joe had said to the people, that's my cat. And it had a, you know, he had a collar on, no name on the collar. But he called me and he said, Michael, I don't know how you did this. And I said to him, neither do I. I just knew I could. Well, I didn't. I wasn't sure. I couldn't tell somebody 100% that I knew, but I saw where the cat was. I believe I connected to the cat's consciousness and I was able to connect somewhere and I could see where the cat was. And I you know, I drew a picture of the Volkswagen Bug in the alleyway and those things. And I wrote the number of the house and the street name, which was Maple View or something like that. Anyway, it's been, you know, it's been since 1970. Whoa, I guess 8, something like that. Who remembers? But they were, you know, they were a little uncomfortable around me for that. It's like, how did you know these things? And I wondered, but I think I knew I connected. That wasn't my spirit self or it was my brain sending energy out, which I believe connected with, as I said, the cat's energy. We connected somehow that way. I have always had a connection with cats, and as you know, I have a new cat. So those things, there's an energy there. And from my spirituality, it's a strange thing. You know, in Egypt, cats were like, you have all these reptile people. They had cat people, the various gods and goddesses that were lions or cheetahs or house cats. Ubasti, the cat goddess, was one of the most powerful goddesses in all of Egypt, connected with the goddess Isis. She was, in a way, her daughter, and she's a solar goddess. Most other cultures say that the sun is masculine, and the Egyptians have masculine and feminine gods and goddesses that are solar. So they're contradiction of the whole world. You know, it's just kind of an interesting thing. But I wondered, you know, they didn't have I get whatever it is on the brain, the things when I was connecting with the cat. But they did do when I did astral projection and past life regressions with people and interactions with Soren Siti. And I still, from time to time, will work with him. You know, you've heard of Jane Roberts, of course.
Yes.
Seth Speaks. Well, they compared me to Jane Roberts that way. Soren Siti claimed he was never a person, a human, that he was outside of the earth, but never explained where. he said he was from the celestial order. And that's all he would say. And they would say, well, what, you know what? And he connected himself supposedly to the star Sirius and Orion's belt, meaning with Osiris and Isis. So, and that was all I ever got at it. And of course, the weird thing was when I would work with him, I asked for projected. It was kind of like an elevator. I went out and he came back in, and you know, like up and down. And I never had any memory of anything. It was actually uncomfortable to get back into my body.
Hmm.
So, have you experienced it that way too?
Yeah, I've had astral projections, and I've had when I was in trance where I was removed and whatever was talking through me talked to people and I didn't have to be there. So sometimes I wanted to be there. Sometimes just went on these astral trips, and they were trippy, you know. And usually they involved other cultures and all sorts of symbols that I was unfamiliar with, and I didn't remember everything when it was done. But yes, I remember those days, and those forms of consciousness were very different than waking or meditative or sleep consciousness that we go through.
I would
Ur-
send myself to the Metropolitan Museum, to the Impressionist wing. If I could sit down in one of the park, you know, feel the energy and walk around and feel the vibrations from the paintings. I thought it was kind of cool.
I used to go to the Temple of Dendar in the same museum, and I used
Yeah, yeah, sure.
to the ancient Greek and Roman exhibit. That always put me in a good place. The Egyptian exhibit.
I
Well,
tried to stay, I tried to stay away from the Egyptian exhibit because I knew it on the physical plane too well. I like the Impressionist wing because I didn't know much about it. I know it's a pickup place. That's all I knew about it.
well, today, Nick had suggested on the telephone earlier that maybe we should dress up, and I love the way he looks, so maybe that's a good idea. So if anybody wants to dress up in Egyptian regalia or
Oh,
space
wow.
gear or anything you want, that'd be welcome. I have to figure out a way to let my shoulders be seen. Otherwise, whatever I wear, you'll see my head and not much else. And Setna had talked about weaving our personal experiences more into the topics that we're um, uh, exploring. And he did that very well today and showed us what that would be like. So again, it'll be an experiment in progress. But the more fun we can have with this, the better. And
Here, I'll look more Egyptian, okay?
and
I have an Uraeus cobra crown. Now I'm more Egyptian, okay?
that would be very cool. Yeah, I can see it. Uh, so
There.
so basically, we will explore these things and more. And if anybody comes up with anything as we're moving forward, please let me know. I'm open to new ideas. I really appreciate the fact that all of us, despite our preferences for certain ways of looking at the world and certain beliefs, are open-minded enough to, in a friendly manner, explore other people's views and to consider what they're saying. So I'm so very honored that that's taken place in a lot of the conversations that I have online. What I would like to offer is because this isn't really a money-making thing, you know, it's like my passion, and I value the conversation. Is if there's any way I could promote what you guys are doing individually, you know, please let me know. So any podcasts that you do, even if they have nothing to do with my channel, I gladly promote them. Every book you publish, you know, even if I'm in it or not, you know, it doesn't matter. I'll help promote it. If you're on somebody else's show, getting interviewed or whatever, and you'd like that promoted, I will promote it. So I'm very grateful for all of you participating in these talks. So if there's anything I can do to help you spread the word about what you're doing, please let me know. And if I can, I'll gladly do it.
Very, very appreciated. Thank you for that.
I
So,
will be teaching classes, as you know,
yes.
and it will all be on Zoom because, and the MNN network, because as you know, I'm packing up as we speak and moving to Savannah, Georgia.
Mhm.
And it's kind of a strange thing. I mean, it's a brave new world for me. I don't know anything about it. I know my potential roommates now are all dying to get to that cemetery where the Good Night in the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil was filmed.
Oh, wow.
And I want to stay away from there. I think it kind of gives me the creeps. But um, the energy in Savannah is very old, both Native American, African slave, um, and Viking, oddly enough. They
That is
found
not
Viking, they
common.
found Viking ruins outside of Savannah. So I'm looking forward.
I'm looking forward, and I'll gladly link to that as well. I'm moving toward a school of some sort. Right now, I'm calling it the Athenaeum, which is what they called Athena's temples. They were part university, part museum, and part library. So, the school I'm putting together is just going to be a place where people who want to teach this type of stuff can teach it, and we're not restricted to like an hour or half an hour or an hour and 15 minutes or so forth. So that's coming probably by 2025, it'll all be set up, but that's on the horizon. So if any one of you wants to teach a particular subject, I'll send you the information. I'll gladly hook you up. And that will
That's
be
a that's why I mentioned it. I wanted to link what you're doing to what I'm doing.
good. We have a good partnership.
I'm doing something quite different than the others here because I'm working on an art show that's
Mhm.
highly political and also very funny. And I'm hoping to get a lot of buzz, and I hope that will be opening somewhere in New York City, maybe the Soho area this coming year. So that's taking place now. I'm searching for the right gallery to represent me, and I'm also working on a rock song. It's the second rock song I've done, and it deals with what's going on now worldwide. And it's kind of a wake-up call. It's called Wake Up, Fight Back. And it's a rock number. And I think it's one of the most creative things I've ever done. And it's highly educational, I think. So that's two things I'm working on for the new year.
That is awesome. And we did a show on your first rock song. So we'll do a show on your second rock song as well.
That would be great. Thank you.
And as we close now, and I apologize, I have to wrap up early, but I haven't talked to my son in a while, and he only has a small window of time to talk to me. But how can people enter your world, Nick Curto?
My email, and they're certainly welcome for any comments or questions they may have. I'd be very honored to do that. I'm going to give you my personal email, which is NICKNYNY1, and that's the numeral one, not ONE, but the numeral one at gmail.com. So Nick, NYNY1 at gmail.com. Thank you.
And you have to wear what you're wearing to a UFO convention.
Oh, but believe me, that's going to happen. And we're going to
Oh,
have for Disclosure Network New York in January a party. And I've asked everybody to work on a costume and a name for themselves and a bit about background of what cosmic person they are. So it's going to be a contest, first, second, and third prizes, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a party, and I hope you gentlemen can make it.
and you'll have a group in no time if you walk around like that at a UFO conference or
Hey, I'll take you up on that. Absolutely. The more, the better. The more people that understands what's going on, the better.
Thank you so much for everything you do, Nick. And Tim, how can people enter your world?
Well, I just want to say, first of all, that Nick, I love the costume and I love the glasses, especially. Those are awesome.
Aren't they really?
They really are.
They give you a kind of a different view of things too.
I
mean,
bet.
yeah. So thank you very much for that compliment.
Well, you can find. Oh yeah, look at that! It flashes too. You can find all of my books on Amazon.com, both as print and ebooks. You just type in my name, Tim R. Swartz, and they'll all come tumbling out for your reading pleasure. And I guess that I was on another episode of the Unexplained with William Shatner last night. I had a friend of mine, Paul Dale Roberts from California, email me and say, "Hey, I saw you on last night," and it was a section where they were talking about the Nazi bell, the De Glock.
Yeah.
And I remember them asking me questions about it, but since it didn't show up on the initial show about time travel that I was on, I figured they went another route. But no, they saved it, and that's the way that these production companies work. You could, because they'll talk to you for a couple of hours, and you may find yourself on a completely different program made by the same production company. You know. Weeks, months, years later. So yeah, Cats Yet Explained with William Shatner, and you'll get a brief glimpse of me stuttering my way through the Nazi Bell. How about that?
Awesome.
Our most recent book is Mimics the Others Among Us. Go out and get yourself a copy. We're currently working on, and Hercules has submitted a chapter on a book about the mysteries of time. So I'm hoping that all of my other writers will get their chapters in, and that we can get this put together and out by early 2024. So we're all looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it too, and we'll devote a show to that and invite some of the other authors who may want to talk on the show to talk more about the book and discuss their ideas and perspectives. I recently saw you on a episode of Ancient Aliens,
Really?
and I lived in near Kecksburg in Pennsylvania when I lived there, like over a decade ago, for a decade.
hmm
The acorn shaped or bell shaped UFO that landed there. A lot of people wondered if that was the Glock.
Yeah, I think that's where some of the stories about the bell being a time machine came from, because of the striking similarity between the two. If not a time machine, then maybe somebody else took that technology and used it for something else.
Thank you for everything that you do. You are a giant on the world stage, and what you do is phenomenally important because, again, this information would not be in the public eye if people like you didn't help to spread it. And I'm glad that you're getting the recognition on these other shows, and it's always a pleasure to see you pop up. Hey, there's Tim.
I know, sometimes it surprises me too. Thanks, Hercules. I appreciate that.
And Setna, where can people go to find you and enter your world?
Very simple. First, you can get me on my email, mkwaterman@iCloud, not clown, iCloud.com. You can get me on Facebook at Michael K. Waterman. Also, phoneawizard.com on Facebook, but there's also going to be now a Phone a Wizard site where I'll have all my services and all of the different things I offer for people to work with. I'm working with GoDaddy and Wix, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to take, but we'll see. And of course, we can reach me through you or on my phone number, which is 516-650-3691.
Thank you so very much, and you're awesome, and I'm glad you finally made it to my house. We got to do that before you moved down to Georgia, but as we've both pointed out and other people have pointed out, we're still only a phone call or a Zoom page away. So as a people, we have obliterated the barrier of time and space to some degree, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful to have interacted with you in person, once at my home and once at one of Nick's meetings in the city.
Yes.
Network. So thank you, everybody. If I don't speak to you soon, happy holiday season. Happy whatever holiday resonates with you and you celebrate. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Blessed winter solstice all. Take care.
Love to everyone, everywhere. Much love.
Good night all.